So I've noticed all my videos thus far have had a negative critical bent, discussing the problems with Hollywood and the modern gaming industry. But I don't want to only highlight the bad in entertainment, I also want to celebrate and recommend the things that I love. So with this video, you're going to get my not so humble recommendation of a show you should be watching. Attack on Titan is an anime, based on author Hajime Isayama's manga, and it isn't a stretch to call it a modern masterpiece. If you're not familiar with it, Attack on Titan is a serial long-form epic in a fantasy setting. The show carries a large cast with more than a few mysteries, not to mention large battle scenes with high casualty counts. And yes, I'm aware this sounds a lot like Game of Thrones, but it is different in a few notable areas, not the least of which is Isayama completed his series with a definitive ending, and the anime adaptation remains faithful to that source material. While I will not venture too far into spoiler territory, because I don't want to ruin it for anyone, I will give you the basic setup, which is contained within the first episode. Set in an alternate world in the year 845, the story takes place with the last remnants of humanity, who live within a walled-off territory. These massive 160-foot-high walls have sheltered what's left of the human race from large man-eating creatures called Titans for close to 100 years. The story begins when three young friends, Eren Yeager, Mikasa Ackerman, and Armin Arlet are just trying to get by in their hometown in an outer section of wall when disaster strikes. Humanity's century of peace comes to a horrific end. The rest of the plot plays out from this one event, with causes and effects it takes the whole series to fully explore. Now, if this brief synopsis of the first episode has already sparked a few questions, that's okay. Attack on Titan builds a lot in evoking questions and presenting mysteries, a storytelling concept that should be familiar to anyone who knows J.J. Abrams. Abrams has spoken out on a number of occasions about a storytelling concept central to many of his projects. It's not new, and it didn't originate with him. However, he did, for better or worse, popularize it. When writing a story, an author will sometimes hide aspects of the plot, the characters, or the world. Principally, this is to set up secrets and mysteries for the audience. There's a second and more practical part of this, and that's to hook an audience. People may become interested in a mystery before they become invested in the story or characters. Whatever the reason, craftily hidden elements at the core of a narrative is what we sometimes call a mystery box.
But when I started to think that maybe there are times when mystery is more important than knowledge, I started getting interested in this. And so I started thinking about Lost and the stuff that we do, and I realized, oh my God, like mystery boxes are everywhere in what I do. You look at stories, you think, well, what are stories but mystery boxes? There's a fundamental question. In TV, the first act is called the teaser. It's literally the teaser. It's the big question. So you're drawn into it. Then, of course, there's another question, and it goes on and on and on.
There is one big issue with mystery boxes, though. Using them means entering into a contract with your audience. You ask them for their time and attention, to become engaged in your work, to talk about it with others, to speculate about the answers and the mysteries you've presented. In return for their fandom, you promise to give them answers. To open the box and reveal the hidden information in a way that is surprising or fulfilling, and hopefully both. As JJ's work can attest, this does not always happen. His television show Lost is a prime example of a story built on mystery boxes that were never fully satisfied, and I think that's a large part of why it hasn't endured. But it is in no means a failure that's unique to Lost. This is an area where Attack on Titan stands above many of its peers. The first few episodes also make heavy use of the mystery box concept. Large parts of the world's lore and story are not fully explained. For instance, what are the Titans? Where did they come from? And how did humans manage to build these three massive walls while being driven to the brink of extinction? Some answers come more quickly than others, but rest assured, every question that the show presents it has an answer for. Gaps in the narrative that seem to be plot holes do not remain, as they regularly take trips back to fill in those gaps. It does this both to bring a renewed understanding of past events, but also to subvert your understanding of what's taking place in the present. Attack on Titan does this for major bits of plot, but also for its characters, and even mechanical aspects of the world building. This gives the show a constant supply of setups and payoffs that not only keep the promises made, but also helps the show's biggest twists feel appropriately earned. Now, in addition to the three main leads, Attack on Titan also boasts a large ensemble cast of characters, each with their own priorities, drives, ambitions, and narrative arcs. Like Jean, a cocky and self-assured elitist who dreams of being the best so he can do as little work as possible. Or Annie, an antisocial fighter whose persistent stoicism causes her to act as if she is an island unto herself. And Levi, a military squad leader who carries a sizable portion of the fanbase all by himself. Each of them has life and depth, which keeps anyone from becoming too one-dimensional. And while the show isn't perfect, it handles its large cast incredibly well. The growth some experience over the course of the series is unmatched in any show. Just beware of getting too attached, because like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, Attack on Titan has a habit of its characters meeting sudden and brutal ends. Another thing that stands out about this show is its beautiful art direction and impressive attention to detail. The way the Central European aesthetic and the architecture and character design are tied to the world building, the technical specificity that goes into the pieces of technology that make them feel believable. And then there's the animation, masterfully handled first by Wit Studio and then by Mappa. Both made use of 3D models and traditional animation to bring action sequences to life. Working on this show forever changed and elevated both studios to the point where there's a clear distinction in their work before it and after it. In addition to the animation, Attack on Titan has one of the best OSTs of any show running. It captures emotional beats and communicates volumes, as some characters have their own themes that have layered meanings that become all the more significant the further you watch. You may have even heard songs from this soundtrack and not even realized it, because it's crossed over into the mainstream. Now I will say this show isn't perfect. It has some pacing issues, and aspects of the plot become convoluted, especially in Season 3. And the main character also falls victim to some anime tropes, causing him to seem more reactive than active for chunks of the story. Also, more than once, he devolves into a self-doubting, whining jackass. But overall, I believe the strengths of this show overcome its weaknesses to make for something truly special. Both the original Japanese and the English dub are both good. There are a couple of standouts whichever way you go. For instance, Aaron's Japanese actor, Yuki Kaji, does a fantastic job, and I think is a stronger performance over the English VA, Bryce Papenbrook. Though that's not at all a knock against Bryce, and I think he does a good job. Elsewhere, there are performances I do enjoy more in the dub, like Trina Nishimura's portrayal of Mikasa, which has a slight edge over Yui Ishikawa, or Jessica Cavallo as Zoe Hanji over the Japanese actress Romy Park. All that to say, Japanese or English, you can't go wrong either way. Once again, I've kept some of this vague and brief because I don't want to spoil anything, but hopefully there's been enough here to recommend the show, even if you're not into anime, if you haven't watched anything from Japan, if your only experience with animation is from Disney or DreamWorks, if you're a fan of dark fantasy epics like Game of Thrones, then I think you'll be a fan of this show too, and I highly recommend Attack on Titan. Though as always, this is just a Rebel's opinion. And what do you think? If you're a fan of Attack on Titan, or if you've tried it out, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video, and please subscribe so you'll continue to get more opinions and recommendations from Rebel Normal.